So I want to bring up a phrase tonight that I'm guessing that we have all run into lately. It's a word that's become quite uh, heard a lot in spiritual circles, I think also in psychological circles, and even like emotional development spaces. And that is the word embodiment. And it's interesting because I just got this little nudge, oh, that this was what wanted to be spoken about tonight, embodiment. And I always get interested about what the dictionary says in terms of that word. I recognize I had an idea what I meant when I said embodiment. So I looked it up, and Merriam-Webster said to give a body to a spirit, or to incarnate, to become a body. And the other one was, this may surprise me, to deprive of spirituality. So neither one of those, like, well, that's not at all what I would have thought about embodiment. At least in the way I'm saying that we're hearing about it a lot now. The thing that is also coming online because of, I mean, this is where this word is coming from, is this bringing us back home to the wisdom of our bodies and teaching us ways to listen to the body, which we're recognizing as being so very important. And I am aware that in the practice of surrendered presence, all of stage one is practicing, is working with embodiment. So we'll do that in a minute after I talk about it a little bit, but just to kind of keep that in your mind as I teach a little bit. And I'm going to venture off into territory that I know something about, but I am inexpert in. I am not an expert in. And that is human development. And that I mean by that, the development of us as human beings over the long haul, the centuries, the millennia. So at the front end of this, a lot of times when we look back and we attempt to understand the past, and especially the very distant past, we can only see it through the lens of how we are now, and the world that we live in now. We can't really ever think like people did 10,000 years ago. And we might be able to think like people who lived 2,000 years ago in writings that are still around, or people like Aristotle or Plato, or some of the philosophers that some of the writing stuck around, and we can still understand that and see what those people were thinking. But even then, there was a very different perspective, and the vast majority of people didn't think in the same ways as Aristotle and Plato. They were at the front end of thinking. So just to be aware that we as human beings began at the earliest stages. Of course, we were driven absolutely by the body's needs. It was absolutely a full-time job to simply stay alive. So you had to be protecting yourself. You had to be gathering your food. There was not a lot of leisure time, and also not sure how well we had actually developed our capacities, intellectual, emotional. Who knows how long that period went on. This is where I'm very inexpert. But the thing that came after that was very much where we had the sense of what I will just call spiritual. So, as we know, it's very early on with human beings that they start thinking that there might be something out there. They start worshiping gods, or making stories about gods and where we came from. And so we have to believe that we as human beings thought there's something else here, not just the body. And we begin to have a lot of feelings and to notice our feelings. And I think that this was probably some of the golden age of when people lived at one with nature. So we know even now there are tribes in the world that have been a few of them still out there that are unexposed to modern humans, and they live more at one with the physical world and nature, and they have a sense of that. So the next stage in which we are living, people then began to have lots more space for pondering, for thinking, for puzzling over things, figuring things out. These are all the areas that intrigue me very much. And however many hundreds of years ago, 3 or so or 4, I'm not quite sure, came the Enlightenment, where in most ways, the mind took primacy over all thought, being able to learn, to understand, to figure out, and then to use all of that to make our lives much better. But just to see that then that became the center. And so I'm aware that in all of my lifetime, that's the message that I got, even though I was raised very religious, spiritually. Everything came through my mind. I was taught how to do blank. I don't think I was ever guided how to have a sense of God, how to have a sense of love or being loved. It was instruction. And so I really feel that there is this turn now back. It's been coming for a long time. It's nothing brand new. This turn back to what we've lost when we made the brain and the intellect so first, so the most important thing. And so one of those things was the connection to the wisdom of our body and listening to our body, and also listening and having experiences beyond ourselves. I don't know if any of you may share this experience. I had a grandpa, who set out in the yard under a tree for hours. He didn't have a newspaper. He didn't have a phone, of course. He wasn't reading a book. He wasn't even talking to anybody. He sat there. My guess is that a fair amount of that time, he didn't probably have a lot of thoughts. He wasn't sitting there trying to figure anything out. He was actually just being. That never has come naturally to me in my entire life. I've always believed I needed to be using my mind to learn, to read, to plan, to figure out, to fix, even to heal myself, even to heal my emotional parts. If I just take the next class, if I just read the next book, just join the next group. And it has been really very few groups who actually led me and others back to embodiment. So before we get into the actual practice, I want you to take a minute just to pay attention to your body and what your body's experiencing. And every kind of experience. I can feel that my nose is running right now. And most of us are probably noticing things that we would never have noticed. It never would have arisen into our attention unless we actually pointed our awareness in this direction, into the body. So now I want you to see if you can get a sense of your spirit or your inner being, what we call the heart or the soul. It may be some part of you that does flow out towards nature or feels really connected there. And then I want you to notice your mind. So this is just the observation of how your mind is working in this moment, what thoughts arise or have been arising or are arising. And so now I'm going to invite you to see if you can have a sense of all three of those things online at the same time so that you're not flipping through physical, spiritual, mind, physical, spiritual, mind. That you have a sense of your being, body, spirit, mind. Not three separate things, but your being. So if you can have even a little glimpse into that, when I hear the word embodiment, that's what I mean. And probably a better word is embeingment, but I don't hear people using that word. But embodiment meaning it's all here and it's my body is the interface for it. In some way, all of it is being experienced through my body. But it's not just body. It's not just mind. It's not just heart. And then there's all kinds of other things that I'm not naming in there that I don't know for sure. We just named those three things. So we hear the term like, I got to get out of my head. And I am in a love-hate relationship with my head much of the time. I don't want to denigrate. My goodness, how stunning are our minds. Wow. But how equally stunning are our spirits And our bodies, wow, crazy. So when we can experience all three of those online at the same time, that's when we're truly experiencing our own being. And if we can return to that place when we are in the midst of either great wonder, great beauty, a beautiful moment, or a challenging moment, or painful moment, that is what's going to stabilize us and lead us into transformation, to have that experience from being, not from simply mind, intellect, brain. So I invite you now, looking around the room, it seems clear that you have already begun to practice, already dropped in to your experience. So just once more, noticing your physical being. And a reminder that we do not notice in order to change it. We notice in order to understand and know our own being. And then noticing your inner experience. And we're not leaving the body behind. We're bringing the body along. It's still here, still online. Now we're being more online with including the inner experience, heart, intuition, energy. And it does include mind. So now I want you to bring your attention to your feet or to where your body's in contact with what's holding it. Just letting your awareness, just imagining that it's like a cloud that just drifts down and rests between your body and what it's coming into contact with, or between your feet and the floor. Really hear that word. Let your awareness rest there. It may float off, but then just inviting it to float back and rest there. And then becoming aware and even having the sensation of your body being acted upon by the force of gravity, so that you feel yourself drawn into the earth. And seeing if you notice that as your being is drawn into the earth, your body is drawn into the earth, there is a sense that you're a part of the earth. And you recognize that as we are acted upon by this force called gravity, that we are being held. We are being held in place. We don't float off. We don't fall over. We are held. And to become aware of that other great force in the universe, which is love. Reminding that love doesn't simply arise in human beings or in this being we call God or any one thing, that love simply is. Just as here on earth, air is, water is. And as we are in love, love holds us. And because we are held, we can let go. We can relax. So we allow the physical body to teach us how to let go by following the breath. So just observing the breath, imagining that it begins in the low belly and rises up through the belly and the chest as it comes in. And then as it goes back out again, it drops down and lands again in the low belly. And just taking this moment to observe the breath in its cycle. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything. The breath knows exactly how to receive and to let go. And then beginning to especially notice that release of the breath, to notice what it feels like in your body, that letting go. And that same sensation of release reverberates and is mirrored in our inner being and in our spirit. It feels the same when we surrender whatever it is we're clinging to, or whatever way we want things to be. So whenever you feel stabilized in that sensation of release, just let that sensation carry you into complete surrender, where you let go of thoughts. You don't have to observe anything anymore or imagine anything. You can just be carried into love that holds you. And when your mind wanders, just returning to the breath and the sensation of letting go, or returning to your feet on the floor and the sensation of being held. And knowing that because you are held, you can let go, you can let be. And I really invite you to spend another several minutes, if you are able, in this place of surrender, of letting go. And I will sign off now. And I thank you all so much for practicing with me, supporting my own practice. And I will see you next time.